The following program has a voluntary rating of TV PG-13. Some scenes may contain material that some may consider disturbing and intense. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. This is part 2 of our season premiere of season 2. Here's another little piece of science in relation to the paranormal, which you might want to think about. The frequencies that we humans can see or hear are a very small amount of the frequency spectrum. As this chart shows, we only see and hear somewhere around 5 to 10% of the frequency spectrum. So spirits could exist all around us, and they might be slightly outside our perceptual range. So many, if not most of us humans, would rarely, if ever, see any spirits. I recently heard that some folks invented a device that can see into the frequency range where spirits exist. This brings us to today's show, where I'll be describing a few instances where I was a witness to paranormal activity. The events I witnessed were in the house where I live. As I mentioned in the season premiere, I thought the paranormal activity ceased in my house at the end of 2022. Yet some strange things started to happen that made me think the activity was starting to become active again. I woke up very early on the morning of February 1st, 2023, before the sunrise, and saw a strange sight. I woke up at about 3 or 4 a.m., and I had to go to the bathroom so bad that my stomach was hurting. I walked into the hallway and made my way to the bathroom. As I got to the door, I saw it was only partially opened. I noticed the light wasn't turned on, but there was enough light to see due to a night light we left on in the hallway. I went to step into the dark bathroom, but as I did, it looked like there was a man standing there. I stopped before I ran into him. I needed to use the toilet with so much urgency that my stomach hurt. So I was in quite a hurry. So I spoke to the man that was standing there. I told the person that I didn't know we had guests. I then told them I needed to use the toilet so bad that my stomach was hurting, and I asked if I could use the toilet. The person simply stood there and didn't say anything or even acknowledge my presence. I then reached my hand out in the dark to see if I could tap on their shoulder or arm so I could get their attention. I repeated my request to use the toilet, yet I noticed that as I tried to tap on their arm, I couldn't feel anything there. I then tried to reach farther toward the person to see if it was actually someone standing there. The person still didn't respond or move. I put my hand up to them again, and I didn't seem to be able to touch anything. I looked at my hand to make sure I was reaching far enough. As I saw my arm reaching out toward the person, my hand didn't seem to touch anything. I said, "Excuse me." They didn't respond, so I figured I would try to turn on the light to get their attention and see them a bit better. So I reached back with my left hand to turn on the light, while still keeping my eye on them as they stood in front of me. Yet as the light came on, the person disappeared instantly. I was a bit stunned at their disappearance. I had a very eerie feeling come over me as I stood there in stunned amazement. I stood there silent as I realized that the person was actually a full-body apparition that had stood before me. So I quickly looked behind the door, behind the shower curtain, and in the hallway, but saw no one there. I then noticed the aching pain in my stomach once again and rushed to close the door so I could use the toilet. When I finished using the toilet, I washed my hands and looked around again, but I still didn't see the apparition. I stood there thinking for a moment and wondered if this was one of the other full-body apparitions I had seen. I wondered if it could have been the guy I saw with blood running down his face about a year before this. I also wondered if it was the one I saw in the hallway a few months before this. I had seen the second one the previous September during a storm. I talked about both of them in previous episodes. I then stepped into the hallway and didn't see the apparition there either, but I thought long and hard about what had happened. I considered this situation significant enough to write a description of what I saw when I got back to my bedroom. I wanted to have an accurate description, and I've learned to write things down as soon as possible. That way the details don't get blurred. A short time later, as I sat and thought about it, I wondered if the apparition I saw was the previous owner. It looked similar to that man, but it looked like a younger version of him that I saw in the bathroom. As I thought more about all the paranormal activity I had seen, it seemed like an ongoing issue with this house. It was now clear that the paranormal activity was getting very active once again. Since I had seen apparitions before, I made up my mind to remain as calm as possible and speak to them. I try not to get too disturbed or scared when I see a ghost or apparition. I try to act respectfully toward them in case they are only confused, lost, or are nostalgic and want to visit. I heard one person say that ghosts are people, but they simply don't have a body, so we should always have respect for them, and we should never speak ill of the dead. Remaining calm and respectful is a nice sentiment, but it's different when you have a strange, eerie feeling. I hope that the paranormal activity wouldn't get out of control or get destructive. Yet I was a bit helpless at this point because someone threw away my sage bundle and I didn't have time to go get another one. Yet things did remain calm for the rest of the month of February. Yet the activity didn't stop. It continued. Here's some more of the story. Shortly after lunch on Saturday, March 11th, 2023, I sat at the dining room table and was eating some lunch. As I sat at the dining room table, I thought I heard some footsteps shuffle along down the hallway. It seemed like the footsteps were moving away from me. I also heard the sound of someone sliding their hands against the wall as if they walked down the hallway. I turned to look down the dark hallway and thought I saw a shadow figure walking away as they were slightly hunched over like an elderly person. I also thought I saw the person get to the end of the hallway and go to the right into my parents' bedroom. The hallway lights were turned off, and the hallway was a bit dim, and all the doors to the house were closed, so there were no beams of light to create any shadows in the hallway like that. I then remembered that my mom was behind me in the kitchen. I turned the other way to look over my left shoulder to see if she was still in the kitchen or had walked away down the hallway. I wondered if my vision was blurry and I had mistaken her for a shadow figure. Yet as I turned to look into the kitchen, I was shocked to see her moving around in the kitchen. It looked like she was getting herself something to eat for lunch. I had to do a double take and look back toward the hallway once again. I noticed the figure had already disappeared from view and couldn't be seen in the hallway anymore. I turned back to mention to my mom that I thought I just saw someone walk down to the other end of the hallway. I mentioned that I thought it might have been her. I then also asked how she got back here so fast from the hallway. She replied that she had been in the kitchen for the last few minutes. I told her that I just saw someone walk down the hallway, but my dad wasn't home and no one else was supposed to be there. She assured me it wasn't her. She then reminded me that she heard noises and saw things around the house now and then as well. I got up out of my chair and walked down the hallway to see if an intruder was there in any of the rooms. I checked her room first since I thought I saw a shadow figure go in there. I didn't see anyone there. I also checked her master bathroom and closet. I checked the other rooms and didn't see anyone else in those rooms either. I hoped there wasn't any intruders intent on harming us. As I got back to the table and told her I couldn't find anyone else, she made a comment to me. She commented that this is what her life was like as well. She saw and heard things sometimes as well. I sat there and thought for a moment and tried to listen for any other noises, but I didn't hear anything else. I knew she had taken some medicine that she suspected had made her see things, but that was a year before this. She stopped taking that medicine the previous year, but it seemed like she was still seeing things now and then. Yet we couldn't blame the medicine this time. Besides that, I have been seeing things as well. I've seen some psychologists say that two people don't see the same hallucination at the same time in the same way. So I figured that there really was some paranormal activity in our house, and it was increasing in activity once again. It wasn't our eyes playing tricks on us, nor was it hallucinations, medication, mental problems, or senility from old age. I asked her if she saw or heard the person walking down the hallway, but she said she hadn't. She only mentioned that she only has these experiences on occasion, but not all day, every day. The more I think back on this situation, I wondered if this shadow figure was the ghost of the former owner's wife. The more I think about it, the more I think this might have been the case in this situation. I had another incident in the second week of April of 2023 where I needed to use the toilet in the early morning hours. I needed to go so bad that my stomach hurt. It was dark, but we had a small nightlight that dimly lit the hallway. The nightlight illuminated a small section of the hallway floor. It didn't illuminate much of anything else, though. I walked through the hallway about 1 or 2 steps and turned toward the bathroom doorway. As I turned toward the doorway, I looked straight across the room toward a mirror on the opposite wall. I could faintly see my reflection in the mirror, but it was so dark that my reflection looked dark. I then thought I saw what looked like another person walk in the darkness or a shadow figure in the mirror. It looked like a reflection of a dark figure that had walked behind me in the hallway. I turned to look to my right, to look down the hallway toward our dining room. I didn't see anyone, so I looked to my left and didn't see anyone there either. I tried to look in the dark bathroom, but I couldn't see much there because it was so dark. My stomach was hurting so bad since I needed to use the toilet that I said, "Excuse me, I need to use the bathroom." I thought if anyone was in there, I should at least be courteous and say, "Excuse me." I walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and turned on the light. I looked around, but didn't see anyone in there. I also looked behind the shower curtain and didn't see anyone there either. I was quick to use the toilet since I had such a strong urge to go. As I used the toilet, I kept looking back and forth to make sure no one was there. I didn't see anyone, but I felt a presence, or like someone was watching me. I spoke in a quiet manner and said, "I'm sorry I rushed in here, but I had to go so bad my stomach was hurting. I didn't know if anyone else was there to actually hear me or not, but I was trying to be respectful anyway. I try to be respectful to all people and to any ghosts that might be lingering around. I washed my hands when I was done and turned out the light as I left. I was slow to open the door, and as I did, I looked back and forth toward both ends of the hallway. I didn't see anyone, so I hurried back to my bedroom so I could go back to sleep. As I returned to my bedroom, I was still unsure if I had actually seen what I thought I did. I reviewed my thoughts as I recalled what had happened. I was quite sure I had seen the shadow figure walk behind my reflection in the mirror. That means it walked behind me down the hallway as I stood near the doorway. The next day, I thought about the situation a little, but hoped that the spirit activity hadn't started again. I tried not to think about it all that much, but my mom mentioned something the next night. She mentioned something after we had eaten supper. She said that as she slept that night, it seemed like she heard someone approach her and say her name. She woke up, looked around, and didn't see anything, so she went back to sleep. She then heard what seemed like someone whispering her name as if they were close to her. She tried to keep from paying attention to it so she could go back to sleep. After a moment, she was able to get back to sleep again. She said that she felt like she had a good night's sleep after that, though, so it seemed okay. When she told my father and I these things, it renewed my thoughts about the incident I had experienced the night before. I remembered seeing the person walk behind me in the mirror's reflection. Since my mom mentioned these things, I got my sage and did a smudging around the house. That night, I didn't think either of us noticed that anything significant happened after that. I talked to a guy I worked with who knew the guy that used to live in our house. He mentioned that the previous resident was a wheeler-dealer and may have done some unsavory things. He even wondered if there might have been some people killed or mistreated by him. I also wondered if this might be a place where many spirits like that would be here. I also wondered if there might be some spirits that travel through this area on a regular basis. Maybe they normally traveled through our house now and then too. I wondered if that might be causing a lot of the activity. I sometimes wondered if I should get some paranormal investigation gadgets or if I should call a paranormal investigation team. My mom was wondering if she had some psychological problems, so I spoke to her about some of this stuff. I know a bit about what psychologists point to as signs of schizophrenia, and she didn't have any of those indications at all. I wondered about my own psychological health for a moment, since I had seen spirits in previous years as well. I also knew that I took no medications that would cause me to hallucinate. I had even seen some spirit activity in the middle of the day sometimes, so it wasn't because I was sleepy. I also didn't have any indicators of schizophrenia. I had talked to some people about depression, but they said that was the only problem I seemed to have, was a little slight depression. I can also say for certain that as I went through the summer of 2023, the activity eventually started up again. It wasn't anything major at first, at least nothing like seeing full-body apparitions and shadow figures like I had seen earlier in the year. At least I didn't see anything like that in the summer. Yet there were several little things that happened, and the activity increased more near the end of the year. As of this time, I still didn't do a sage smudging in our house because my parents didn't want it. Yet since I didn't use my sage, it seemed like every 2 to 4 weeks there was another form of paranormal activity. The activity continued through most of the rest of the year in different forms of paranormal activity. During this time, I found some episodes of a TV show I had seen, and they were now on YouTube. It was the television show called Psychic Kids. I learned some things from that show that eventually led me to make some changes in how I handled the paranormal activity that I had witnessed in our house. I'll be talking about the rest of the paranormal activity I saw throughout the rest of the year on the next episode of the show. So this is to be continued in the next episode. So this is another cliffhanger, and you'll need to see the next episode to see what happened next. So be on the lookout for that next episode. I'll also give a few teasers for the next episode at the end of the credits near the end of this episode. I'll let you know a little of what you can expect to see the next time. I hope this has been an edge-of-your-seat, nail-biting experience as you follow my experiences in these episodes. I can assure you that it has been an eerie to live in this house and witness the paranormal activity from time to time. I was getting to the point where I never knew what I would see next or when I would see it. I often had an eerie feeling as I entered our house, and it was worse as the sun went down. It also seemed to get worse as the cold winter winds would blow. Ooh, it still makes me shudder to think about it. 2023 was probably one of the most active years I've ever seen. I've tried to learn as much as I could from many experts who have dealt with these types of hauntings. I used the wisdom I gained to try to deal with this whole situation. Whether you believe it or not, all I can say is that it's our family's true tales of the supernatural. So everything that the title proclaims is accurate. These are events that our family has experienced and witnessed. These things are true and really happened. It's all various forms of supernatural and paranormal activity my family and I have witnessed. Whether you want to believe it or not is up to you, and you can decide for yourself. So you can believe whatever you want to believe. All I can say is that my family, my friends, and I have witnessed the paranormal activity. Let's take a quick review of the things I've witnessed in this house. In previous years, I saw an apparition of a man with blood dripping down his face. I even saw that apparition several times on several occasions. There was also the night when I was home alone and heard many unexplained sounds. I mean sounds like footsteps, sounds of doors opening and closing, disembodied voices, and a voice that called me by name. Sometime later, I saw another apparition in our hallway when the lights went out during a storm. Then the activity stopped for a few months, and then suddenly started again. It started again with the instantaneous appearance and disappearance of bugs. Bugs were crawling all over the place, it seemed like. Then I saw what looked like a Grim Reaper standing outside in our neighbor's yard. Then I saw a full-body apparition standing in our bathroom. A short time later, I saw a shadow figure walk down our hallway in the middle of the day. A few weeks later, I saw what looked like a mirror reflection of a shadow figure or apparition walk behind me down the hallway. This wasn't all the activity, because I'll be giving details of more of the activity in our home in the next episode. So be on the lookout for the next episode of the show. Oh, besides all this activity, there was also plenty of activity in some of the houses I've renovated through the years. I mean things like objects moving on their own, shadow figures, and apparitions. Such as one house where I saw a roll of carpet that was wrapped in plastic wrap, and the carpet rolled across the room. There was another house where tools on top of a bucket kept getting tossed on the floor with no visible person near the bucket. Then there was another house where I kept seeing a pale apparition run across the hall on a few occasions. I also saw a shadow figure run up some stairs, and a shadow figure standing at the top of the stairs. That's not to mention the several times where we heard disembodied voices and unexplained sounds, such as sounds of doors opening and closing and footsteps walking around when no one else was there. So I was getting a bit overwhelmed, and I needed to find solutions and ways to deal with the activity. I'll talk about one of the big solutions I found in a future episode. As for now, please click the like button to help the algorithm so other people can find this show. As always, remember to click subscribe or follow on Rumble so you can make sure you don't miss an episode. You might also click on the little arrow on YouTube's subscribe button and make sure it's set to all. That way you can make sure you get notifications for every episode that comes out. If there's anything you especially liked about the show, please feel free to comment about it down below. If you would like for me to give more details or clarification on these events, you can ask about that in the comments as well. As for now, I'll just say good night, don't let the bed bugs bite, and don't let the ghosts give you a fright. Goodbye for now, and I hope to see you in the next episode of Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural.